Hello, this is Doug Sharp. Welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. I will be your host today on the briefing. Good to be with you. Lots to cover today. It's exciting time, so we will waste no time and get right into it. But let me just review quickly what it is that we're going to be doing here today so that you can plan out this next 1 hour session with us. First of all, we're going to stick to my desk here. We're going to stay right here to begin and, of course, review the 4 pillars. Again, we have many new people joining us today, and we want to make sure that they are completely clear on what it is that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing. And that, of course, is the 4 pillars. The second thing we're going to be doing here is we're going to be putting, of course, the finishing touches on our campaign. The conservative leadership race is just coming to its peak now, and we all have our ballots in our hands. We're going to just put the finishing touches on that campaign. And then we are going to head over to the boardroom. That's the big boardroom we're going to start out with. And we're going to I want to run you through what the last 12 months of the National Leadership Briefing is covered, because I think what happens is we got to do a little bit of a memory check at times and really remember why it is such a good use of our time here to get together and spend 1 hour once a month covering the things that are immediately important, that are right in front of us, that need to be dealt with, and then look back and go, wow, we covered 1 hour once a month, and look at where we're at. We have come so far, and I don't want you to forget it, because really it's quite amazing. I was even surprised at how much we can do together over a long period of time, just to dedicating that little amount of time to combining our influence. So we're going to start there, and I'm just going to touch the high points. What did we cover? What did we talk about? What information did we share? What have you got in your archive, and what have you got in your tool belt? You got to make sure we go over that stuff. And then, of course, I want to remind you the second thing we're going to cover in the smaller boardroom is we have just done something that is quite amazing. And I obviously I don't like looking back too much. There's so much ahead of us on the road ahead. There's so many things that we can be doing on the road ahead. But this is really a success story, what you have accomplished over this last campaign to exercise influence within the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election. So I want to make sure that you know what you did and how awesome you are. And so we're going to do a quick overview of the strategy and the campaign that we ran here together, all of us, with conservativeupdate.com, so that we fully understand where we were, where we are now, and what we're going to be doing on the road ahead. So it's going to be a great launch pad there, because as we finish reviewing the conservativeupdate.com campaign, I am going to tell you about some pretty exciting things that are coming up as far as next steps on that website, conservativeupdate.com. And then we're going to close out. We're going to come back here to my desk, and I am going to share something really exciting for those of you that stick it out and go the full hour with us today. It's bonus time for you, because I'm going to be sharing part of the strategy, just teasing you with it. I know we are not quite ready to launch the whole thing yet, but I'm going to share part of the strategy for the road ahead for something that we're going to be taking on here at the National Leadership Briefing. And you and I working together are going to have a major amount of influence on the outcome of a very important conversation that's about to take place here in Canada. So stick around to the end, and you will be happy that you did, because that is going to be great information. Okay, let's start with the 4 pillars. Let's start with the 4 pillars. And, for those of you who've been on the calls before, that is all important that when new folks come on the calls, that there's no gray area for them. We want to make sure that you're getting started right, that you understand exactly what it is that we're doing here and why we're doing it. Well, here it is right now, is that we, as people of faith from all across the nation, there are things that we share in common. There are things that we believe in together. And there are things that we want to see advanced in the way of ideas into society, culture, politics, and government. And the way we do that these days is by coming together and exercising our influence in a combined way when we see these opportunities ahead of us to advance these ideas. Well, what is it that we believe in collectively? Well, after many years, this goes back to the fall of 2016. Back in the fall of 2016, a series of surveys started going out across the nation. We were asking leaders in the church. We were asking leaders of families. We were asking centers of influence. We were asking people in the pews, talk to us, tell us what it is that is important to you? What are your priorities? What do you want us to focus on? What are the things that we should accept, and what are the things that we should reject in the way of ideas out there? Well, we got so much good information from you that it actually was a pile on my desk, and we had to break it down into categories. But once you started breaking it down into categories, though, you could see that all of the data, all the information, the things that we collected are like, the things, everything from, you guys were concerned about euthanasia laws and abortion laws and human trafficking and marijuana. They were legalizing marijuana at that time. All of these issues were coming along. But when you looked at it on my desk and you kind of broke it down into categories, it all broke down into 4 silos, or what have come to be known as pillars here on the National Leadership Briefing. And here they are. So you tell me, think about this as I run these through your head. 2 things I want you to think about. Are these the things that I believe in? Are these the things that I believe to be true? Do I support these things? Well, if you do, of course, you're in the right place. And then the second thing is, I want you to imagine, what if these ideas caught on in society, culture, politics, and government especially? Tell me what you think would happen to our society and what would happen to our nation if we as a nation together believed and endorsed and supported these things. Here they are. First of all, we at the National Leadership Briefing, all people all across Canada that participate in this call, we all believe that it is a parent's right to raise their children the way they want. We believe that parents should be free to raise their children in the same faith tradition and with the same values that perhaps they were raised in by their parents. But the choice remains with parents to make those decisions. The second pillar, the thing that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing, is that we have an expectation and a requirement that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend, when necessary, our right of belief and freedom of religion. Now, these days, under the barrage of attacks that are coming against people of faith through governments and through like hyper-political organizations, we believe that these must be defended. We believe that respect is one thing, but our elected representatives cannot sit in their seats and just quietly let attacks come upon people of faith and their ideas in our society today. So that's the second pillar, that those we elect to serve us in civil government at all levels must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Now, the third pillar, which is something that we're going to be touching on later on today in the briefing, is that there's a requirement that the laws and policies that are passed and enacted by civil governments at all levels must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable that live among us in our communities. So often we're finding in Canada these days that governments are enacting policies and passing laws that do not prioritize protection of the vulnerable. As a matter of fact, here on the National Leadership Briefing and all across the nation, we believe that it is the very first box that must be checked when a piece of legislation is considered in the House of Commons. Is it going to be safe for the vulnerable people that live among us in our communities? And that's the third pillar. Now, the fourth pillar, all important these days, with the amount of debt that is being taken on, especially at the federal level right now. And that is that we believe that it's inappropriate to heap debt, civil government to heap debt, that is, on the backs of our children and future generations. So to borrow money today for things that you and I need that are going to be paid for by our kids and future generations is inappropriate fiscal policy. Now, so often politicians will say that we are making an investment in your children's future, but that is just coded language for we are going to be laying a yoke of excessive taxation on their backs when they are born and when they become income earners. And as they go through their young adult lives, they, in their tax dollars, are going to be paying back the money that we're borrowing today. That's really what it means. And we don't believe here on the National Leadership Briefing that our children should be bond servants of civil government. We believe that our children and future generations should be born free and should not be in any way indebted for the things that we paid for today. So right now in Canada, that's a big issue, of course, because we have a massive amount of debt that has just been placed on their backs. So here on the National Leadership Briefing, what we do when we come together once a month, if you're new on this call, you're going to want to pop back here once a month for 1 hour because we are always looking for opportunities on the horizon where we can advance these ideas into these other realms of society, culture, politics, and government. And when we do identify those ideas, and you're going to see one of them today, is when we do see those, we fully capitalize on it. We come together. We come together from all across Canada and we say, okay, you know what? I may not be able to make a big difference on my own, but if I get together with hundreds of thousands of my friends who share my views and values in these areas, then we can significantly impact the conversation that's going on about a legislative proposal that puts people at risk. Or a politician that wants to spend money we don't have on things we don't need to impress people we don't know. So that's another thing. Or we've also got an opportunity when it comes to education provincially. When we come together in our personal networks, our community networks, and our provincial networks, we have an opportunity to tell those educrats and people in the education system that, you know what, I appreciate that you have a very different view than I do about gender and sexuality. I can appreciate that, but I just only ask one thing of you, and that is that you respect my right as a parent to raise my children the way they want. Now, the way I want. Now, this is the cool thing about it is if you're just one parent in a community, you're only going to have so much influence. But when you're linking arms across the province or across the nation with people that share your views and values, the amount of influence that you can have will amaze you. And that is, again, what we're going to be talking about today, because we have just done something here in Canada that is quite outstanding. And I want to make sure that you're aware of what all the things, all the good that you've done. So those are the 4 pillars. So think about that. Is that something you believe in? If it is, you're in the right place. If everyone in Canada believed in these things and our governments actually promoted and supported these ideas, do you think that we would have a better nation? Do you think that Canada would be stronger and freer and more prosperous if we adhered to those values? Just those 4 core ideas. Well, if you do, you're in the right place, and we're certainly glad you're here because you have just added your influence to ours. And just by you being present today, we have a greater amount of influence. So thank you so much for being here today. All right, so those are the 4 pillars. Now, I before we run over to the boardroom, I told you that I want to just put the finishing touches on this because these are in your hands right now. We've done a midweek touch point on this already, but I want to make sure you understand something about these ballots. Do not throw this envelope away if you just received it in the mail. You can see it's got a big window sign where your name is, and it's got ballot enclosed here on the other side. That is your ballot so that you, if you participated with us, and thousands of people from across the nation in exercising your influence as a citizen to help choose the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, a person who could become the next prime minister. If you did what we taught you to do in this last few months, then you received one of these, or you're going to receive one of these. Make sure you pull it out. Don't throw it away. Open it up. Follow the instructions inside. In the post-briefing notes today, I'm going to make sure that there's valuable information in there as to how you can actually handle your ballot. Now, remember, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I never do, but I am going to provide you the information so that you can choose who you want to vote for yourself. So this is the ballot. This is what we've been waiting for. Handle it properly. Go to conservativeupdate.com if you need more information about the candidates. If you didn't get your ballot or you have an incomplete envelope, then call the Conservative Party of Canada themselves direct at their 1-800 number. And I'm going to include that in the post-briefing notes as well, because you know what? You need it in the mail now. This is it. This is the beginning of August, and it's got to be in the mail now if you want to get it to them so it can be counted before they announce the winner on August the 21st, okay? So we're at the deadline. Don't wait. There's no more time, okay? So that's the finishing touches on that campaign itself. Now, we're still going to review conservativeupdate.com because I want you to know what you did or how you got to this place. But we are not going to talk anymore about the ballot for now. So congratulations. The finish line is in front of you. Okay, great. Well, let's head over to the boardroom. Thanks so much for your time here at the desk. I'm going to share some things at the big boardroom first. Then we're going to go to the little boardroom. Then we're going to come back here. And we're going to make it real quick and fun for the rest of the hour. Good to be with you. Talk soon. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number 3, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number 4, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. Okay, good to be in the boardroom again. I mean, you guys know I love it here. So this is where we're going to hang out just for a few minutes, and then I'm going to head over to the small boardroom. All right, let's get started here. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a real quick review of what exactly have we been doing for the last 12 months, and what have we put into it, into our time together, and what have we gotten out of it? Because I know everybody's really busy these days, and we always got to make sure that we're doing the most we can with the time we've got. So let's start there. So on the 12-month review, if you took a look at the National Leadership Briefing and you're somebody that joined us 12 months ago, then what you've actually done is you have invested 12 hours, that's 1 hour once a month, in the National Leadership Briefing. That's the hour that we're spending today. We always start at 1 p.m. Eastern. We always go for exactly 1 hour, and everybody knows I have never, ever, and will never, ever disrespect your time and go a second over 1 hour. So it's 1 hour once a month. That's 12 hours. Plus, we added throughout the year the midweek touch point. Now, that is each week between the monthly briefings. We found that it would be a great idea if you and I just really quickly touched base, just so that we could kind of see where we're at on the road and while we're advancing, and what we need to touch base on, just to make sure that we're clear on if there's any questions that need answering. So we've invested 4, that's once every week for 4 weeks, about an average of 7.5 minutes each month. So that's 12 hours, 1 hour once a month, plus a total of 6 hours, which is that 4 7.5-minute segments each week, for a total of 18 hours. Okay, so here we are 1 year later, and we have taken 18 hours of our life and we have dedicated it to coming together. That's what we've invested in the way of time. Now, you want to know what that actually is? That is a very small percentage of your life. That is not a whole bunch of time. As a matter of fact, last year, you had 8,760 hours total. So you only invested 8 hours, 18 hours here. That's 0.02% of your life you and I spent together coming together. But what did we get out of it? See, more importantly than how little you've invested in the way of time and how efficient we were coming together is, first of all, you identified what it is that are some of the priorities in our life and some of the things that we'd like to see advanced here in Canada. So 4 pillars and the rally points, the things that we rally around, we have crystallized in our minds. If you've come on the National Leadership Briefing every single month for 1 hour and gone on and watched the midweek touch points, I could wake you up in the middle of the night out of a dead sleep, and I could say, what are the 4 pillars? And you would say, a parent has the right to raise their children the way they want, and then those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend. I mean, I'm just telling you, because you have done this repetitively over the course of the year, you've got this drilled in your head. So if anybody has an opportunity out there to share this with anyone else, we're already trained. So that's a huge benefit for an investment of 18 hours of your life over the course of the last year. We've also forged all important alliances with each other. You see, the power of you and I being in relationship, and you and your friend being in relationship, and being able to look across a crowded room and look into each other's eye and go, you know what? I know that your desire to have your freedom of religion and your right of belief protected is of paramount importance to you. I know that I share your views in that. Do you know the power of that, to know who your friends are? Well, you have been shown on the briefings, because we've covered it, is how to build these alliances and increase your influence in your own area. We've also taught on the National Leadership Briefing how to establish and build personal, community, and the national networks of the National Leadership Briefing, and shown you how we can support you to gather influence around your ideas locally. So that is really important as well, is that network development component, because here on the National Leadership Briefing, we acknowledge that we've got to grow to increase our influence. So we're constantly expanding. We're constantly telling other folks about what it is that we rally around and what we come together for and why we do it. And that is an important part of the training that we've received over the course of the last year. So that's done. Also, we've provided support and tools so that you can actually do it easily. Like, for example, in establishing your personal network, the personal network survey that was sent out last month, it's just 4 simple questions that if you asked a friend of yours and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And they answered the question, you would know if that's somebody who would likely enjoy coming on the National Leadership Briefing and adding their influence to ours. So you've been provided tools. Also, somebody got so excited about some of the training that we did on civic affairs committees. That's what that CAC stands for, is civic affairs committees. We taught the importance of having civic affairs committees in churches to support the work of and the efforts of the pastor, that could speak to the pastor and share information about what's happening locally or provincially or regionally, so the pastor would have information and that he could speak to with experience, or she could speak to with experience from the pulpit. Well, somebody got so excited about that idea that they went out and started a whole website and actually now help pastors and churches establish civic affairs committees in their churches. So there is a website that is on, it's called civicaffairs.ca, and you can go there, and there's a website to help you set up your civic affairs committees in your churches. We also have done it regularly on almost every single national leadership briefing. We are talking about issues, things that are happening right now. We recently did one on human trafficking, which we're going to be talking about more in the future. We just recently did one on abortion law in Canada. We've done them on marijuana laws. We've talked about different issues all the way along, so that as you go, you invest a tiny amount of time, but you don't get caught up because flat-footed, out there, not knowing anything about what the issues of the day are. So we talk monthly about the issues that are out there in front of you. Also, in the post-briefing notes, whenever we discuss issues, we bring experts on to share their information, which we then share with you. So you have things like speaker notes. If you're a pastor, you have speaker notes that you can actually speak to these issues to your congregation and to your friends. Or you might just want to have the background information that you could share through your personal networks and serve people to raise their level of understanding on why expanding euthanasia laws to include children and the mentally ill places vulnerable people at risk, for example. So this is the kind of thing that you also have done. So issues review segments, that's really important. Plus, we've also had campaigns. So when we look over the last 12 months, what we've done is we've begun to train ourselves to scan the horizon all the time and looking for those opportunities where we can have influence, and then launch a campaign to take, I mean, think about it. If you had hundreds of thousands of people already coming together, and all of a sudden an opportunity came up where you could have influence, and you moved 100,000 people of influence into that campaign, then you instantly are going to have influence in that. Well, that's what we're doing all the time, is we are not only have successfully run campaigns, but we're going to run more in the future. So those opportunities for you to exercise your influence have always been placed in front of you. And again, 18 hours, remember, it sounds like a lot, but we just picked away at it bit by bit every month. And then finally, we have initiated positive change together in our nation. If everybody takes just a tiny amount of their time, 18 hours, 0.02% of the total amount of time of your life, and says, I am going to dedicate that to initiating positive change in my nation by advancing the things that I believe in into the conversations that are available to me in campaigns, then I'm going to have a positive impact on our country. And you believe me, that's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling. A lot of us have that feeling already, because about what we're about to talk about in the small boardroom. I'm going to take you over there, and we're going to talk about what's been accomplished, where we started, where we are now, and what's been accomplished in one of the campaigns to do with the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election race, and the foundation that has been built there that we can now stand on as we advance into next level influence within that same political party. I mean, it's amazing the opportunities that have been created by the work that we've done with such a small amount of our time over the years. So I wanted to say to you, congratulations for making the decision to be on the briefing every single month. I know that, I mean, sometimes it pops up and it's not entirely convenient, but for you to keep coming back and to completely, always putting those new tools in your tool belt, always raising your level of understanding, always talking to other people, inviting them onto the briefing to raise our combined influence. You together have had a positive impact on our nation. I congratulate you. Well done. Well done. That's awesome. Okay, so that's the last 12-month review. We're going to leave it there. We're going to pop over to the small boardroom, but I'm going to intro it first with the conservativeupdate.com video because, again, we're going to remind you of what it is that you've accomplished, and no better way than to show you the promotional video that started it all back in the beginning. So enjoy the video, and we'll see you over in the boardroom. Okay, it's good to be here again. All right, we wanted to get right into this and make sure that it was clear that as we complete a campaign here on the National Leadership Briefing, that it's crystal clear in your mind what it is that you have accomplished over the course of the term of the campaign, and remind ourselves as to where we came from and where we are now. Why is that important? Because there's going to be a lot of campaigns in our future. You and I, we're going to be in relationship an awful long time. And we want to make sure we learn from every single opportunity that we have to come together and exercise our influence. Well, one such campaign that we just completed taught us an awful lot about working together and how we can be effective as a unit together to influence the outcome of things like political processes. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remind you as to where we were in the beginning and the road that we've traveled to now with regard to the CPC leadership election race. Now, if you just joining the call today and you're not clear, this might be kind of a good story for you to know as well, because this is something you don't know anything about. Maybe you just say, well, hey, I just got here. What did you do? Well, listen up, because this is kind of exciting. So let's take a look back. We got to go back and remind ourselves as to where we were in the beginning. Well, back, first of all, the National Leadership Briefing really started about 18 months ago. I know we just talked about what we've accomplished over the last year, but there was a period of time before last year where we were just getting our feet on the ground and starting to gather people together and really test out what we could accomplish online by coming together once a month for a briefing or a webinar. But 18 months ago, the National Leadership Briefing got together and started out. Then in September the 11th, this was September the 11th last year, this young lady got up, Julie Payette, the Governor General, and she did something called dropping a writ. And basically, that just means that it's almost like the gun going off at a thoroughbred racetrack and saying there is going to be an election, and so go for it. And the writ was dropped saying that the federal election was going to be happening right away. On 21st of 2019, shortly after that, the federal election was held, where the governing Liberal Party of the day, they had a majority Liberal government. They were reduced in that election to a minority government. They got about 157 seats, and they were supported by the NDP. So they formed government on that day, and they remained in power after that federal election. Now, shortly after that, on December the 12th, the Conservative Party of Canada leader rose in the House of Commons and said, I am not going to be continuing on as leader, so I am going to be contacting the party and suggesting that they immediately begin a leadership election process so that they could identify a new leader for the Conservative Party of Canada. Now, of course, all of this is happening very quickly. As you can see, the timeline's very fast. The National Leadership Briefing, we're just getting our legs together, and all of a sudden we have this massive opportunity in front of us to come together as people of faith in Canada and say, this is our choice for leader. That's on December the 12th, right here. The challenge was that the reason that the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, in part, was leaving was because there was tremendous pressure on them, on that individual, because of his closely or tightly held religious beliefs. The things that he believed, his faith, they were actually speaking out against him and his faith in the media, the mainstream media, and in many areas of the party. Now, there's a group of people that were looking back on the election and the fact that the Conservatives weren't able to secure government and saying the very reason why we lost government was because of the leaders' tightly held or closely held religious convictions or beliefs. And so there was a very anti-faith movement going on, and there were questions being raised at that time, if you'll recall, as to whether or not a person of faith could even engage in a process and even run as a candidate to be the leader of a major political party if they had these closely held or tightly held religious beliefs. Well, that was on December the 12th. So on January the 19th, 2020, just over a month later, a group of us got together at a retreat center in Alberta, called together some key leaders across the nation and said, okay, here we are. We're faced with this set of circumstances here where there is a predominant sort of feeling of anti-religious, specifically anti-Christian bigotry was starting to this cloud was rolling over the political landscape of Canada. Yet there was this opportunity before us where we could exercise influence within that process and help identify who the next leader of that political party would be. So on January the 19th, at a strategy meeting in Alberta, I can remember really clearly standing up in front of a group of people and making the suggestion, because at that time we wanted to actually propose it and get some feedback as to what people thought about it, as to whether we wanted to launch something called Operation Engage. Now, Operation Engage is actually a part of the website, conservativeupdate.com. You can see all the details of Operation Engage, but Operation Engage in a nutshell was just basically because of this anti-Christian bigotry and this sense that people of faith couldn't even engage in politics, we thought that it was important that we as people of faith put our foot down and said, we would like the opportunity to engage in this political process within the Conservative Party of Canada and have our ideas held up against the other ideas that are discussed during the leadership election race. Thus, Operation Engage. We proposed it at that time. The second thing we announced at that time was something called the Common Ground platform. Now, the Common Ground platform is actually a political party platform or a candidate platform that is also on the conservativeupdate.com website. Now, in an election, just to give you an idea what the word platform, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, when a candidate or a party runs in an election, they run on a platform. So they actually have a platform made up of all these individual planks. Now, each of the planks makes up the platform that they stand on at the election and say, if you vote for me, I will do these things. Well, what we wanted to do was we wanted to launch our own ideas, even though we weren't a candidate, and even though we weren't a political party on our own, and even though the election of this new leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, they were gonna have their own platform, we wanted to have ours. We wanted to have one that belonged to us. And so what we did was we launched our own platform as part of Operation Engage. Now, let me give you an idea. I want to tell you some of the things that were on this platform, okay? First of all, we said, because parents have the right to raise their children the way they want, we thought it would be a really good idea to actually propose a Parental Authority Protection Act, a piece of legislation that would enshrine the right of parents to raise their children the way they want, to enshrine it in law. So that was one of that. We also had something called the Child Protection Pornography Act. where we felt it was important because of the prevalence of pornography out there and the number of children and the harm that can be done to children with pornography. We felt that it was important that people who were in trust positions, that if they were to present a child with pornographic images, that there would be serious consequences or penalties under the law for them if they did that to children while the children were in their care. So that was one of the other ones. We also had something called the Vulnerable Persons Protection Act. Now, the Vulnerable Persons Protection Act was quite simply that before any piece of legislation could be passed in the House of Commons, we felt that it was important that that there was a box. Remember, we talked about the box that needed to be checked first, that it is a piece of legislation that's going to be safe for vulnerable people within our communities. So we proposed that this Vulnerable Persons Protection Act actually required the government to do a risk assessment on every single piece of legislation. Now, we do that. We thought that was reasonable because we do that with the environment all the time. We do an environmental assessment or risk assessment for any piece of legislation that might harm the environment. Well, why are we not doing that with people as well? So it was things like that that we put down in this leadership election platform on the website. Now, again, remember, we're not proposing being candidates ourselves. We're just proposing creating a place where we can put Operation Engage and a strategy to engage in the leadership race and launch our own leadership election platform. Now, what's interesting about this is that when we housed it on conservativeupdate.com, the plan was that all of the people who supported our ideas, rather than flocking around or rallying around individual candidates, that they would rally around these ideas instead, the 4 pillars, the ideas that were based on the 4 pillars, that they would come together around the platform, and then we would invite the candidates that if they wanted any of our votes, that they could come and adopt any part of the platform that they wanted. That was the strategy. And I'll tell you, I know it sounds a little crazy to think about that back then, but it turned out that we had such a massive number of people that were accepting and realizing, wait a second, these are really sound legislative and policy proposals, that we would like to know what each of the candidates' views are about the ideas we had. So we invited the candidates to come and actually put videos on the website as well. So on conservativeupdate.com, we have videos from all of the candidates. There's 4 of them who are actually going to be running that are running in this leadership election, who now, one of them is going to become the leader of the party, but we have videos from all 4 of the candidates on the website on each of the 4 pillars representing these policy platform ideas that we put forward. So now, if that's not crystal clear, just go to the website because it's all really well laid out. We had some fantastic people that contributed a tremendous amount of time to make sure it was a quality product just for you. Now, what are the advantages for you? Okay, what was the advantage of doing all of that in this campaign? And what was the core strategy there? Well, if you remember, going back to the beginning, there was a conversation going on whether you and I even had a right to participate in the political process. There was a question mark as to whether you and I should even be allowed to engage in the conversation. Well, that's one thing I want to congratulate you on, and all of your thousands of friends across the nation who supported conservativeupdate.com, is because you drew enough attention to the process and to the ideas that were represented on the website, the ideas that support what you believe in, that all of the candidates had to give credence to what it is that we were wanting considered in the conversation. All of the candidates had to participate in the process if they wanted to court your vote throughout this process. Now, I'm going to tell you something behind the scenes because not a lot of people realize this, but as I contacted each of the campaigns in the very beginning, this is before that, like I would get on the phone and I would talk to the campaign teams and I would say, hi, Doug Sharp here, conservativeupdate.com, just want to maybe get you to participate in this process. Do you know that after I explained what it was we were doing on conservativeupdate.com, do you know the one thing that every single campaign asked me? I'm telling you, every single one of them asked me this question. They all said, after they heard me out, they said, Doug, how big are you exactly? I mean, how many people are engaged in this process on conservativeupdate.com? They wanted to know how many people are supportive of these ideas. Now, the reason is obvious, isn't it, though? Because as they're making these decisions in their mind, these campaign strategists, as to what they need to support, what exactly do I need to support, and what is it that I'm going to get back? How much support have we got out there on conservativeupdate.com? How many of you are out there that believe in the 4 pillars? And my answer was the same every time, because you know what? I don't tell everybody about how many of us there are, but I just said to all of them, I said, we're big enough to make a difference. We are definitely big enough to make a difference. And as it turns out, we are. We are definitely big enough to make a difference. Now, we could be bigger. There could be more of us across the nation, but that's what you and I are continuing to do. When these opportunities come up, like the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election race, where someone is going to be taking a very high and lofty position within a political party who could then occupy the highest political office in the land, whenever we see those opportunities, we are going to move our people into that conversation respectfully. Operation Engage, by the way, is a respectful entry into a political process where there is a conversation going on about what's important to Canadians, and we're going to participate respectfully, but we are going to be looking to have our ideas, like the Common Ground platform in this case. We're going to be looking to which candidate is going to be supporting and endorsing those ideas that are represented in our hearts and our minds, the things that we believe in. And that is what you guys accomplished, because look, this is my ballot. This is my ballot that was sent to me, and you all got sent one too, because you made a commitment to engage in this process and stand behind the things that you believe in and say, I will give my support to whichever one of these candidates supports my views and values and is willing to do the things that I believe are important. And you waited. And you did, and you waited. And now we've all got our ballots and we're all sending them in. Now, by the way, that ballot's going in the mail today. That's the last time I'm going to show you my ballot, because I got to get it off. As you know, I got to get it over there to get it in time. But anyway, this is where we're at. We have just exercised influence within a political process and used our influence in a combined way, because we've made sure that we've had all of the information required as to what it is that's going on within the political race. And we've actually applied our own energies into figuring out which candidate best represents our views and values. So congratulations. And I want you to know this story, because it's so easy for us to get our ballot, send it in the mail, and then say, you know, okay, well, let's see what happens, you know. But when you think about what we've accomplished and how far we've come, you realize a couple of things. And this is where I'm going to close this segment out with this. The first thing that you got to realize is that what has been accomplished has created something. Something is left behind, even though we've got this election coming up where they're going to be announcing the leadership election victor on the 21st of August. And you and I, there's a possibility that you and I might actually not like the outcome. It might not be our preferred outcome. It might be something that is different than we imagined. And we have to remember that what we have created and what we have accomplished has left something behind. And we have to make a decision on that day as to whether we are going to burn it to the ground, what's left, what we've accomplished, or whether we're going to stand on it and then rise to the next level. And let me explain what I mean by that. If we have a leadership election outcome that is not satisfactory to you, let's talk about you, then you get to decide whether you're going to stay in the game or you're going to run home and fold up your tent and go home. But before you take off, I want you to just know this one thing, There are two other opportunities that we have ahead of us within that particular political party that we're going to be pursuing at the National Leadership Briefing. And I've already shown you what we've accomplished over the last 12 months, and I've shown you what we've accomplished here. Well, imagine what we can accomplish with this. There are two things happening within that party. The very next thing that's happening with that party is they are going to be going through a policy review process. And all of these ideas, these legislative and policy proposals that we fought so hard to put in front of the leadership election candidates, we have an opportunity to have these placed into the policy book of the party itself. And we're going to be teaching people how to take advantage of that and use our combined influence across the nation to move our legislative and policy proposals from our book into that book. And if that party becomes the government of Canada, then it's a real good place to have your ideas, is in their policy book. The second thing is that the leader of the political party that we're working with right now, the Conservative Party of Canada, and all parties, they have a governing board of directors that are from all of the provinces across the nation. And we have, using our combined influence, an opportunity where we can influence who it is that sits on that governing board of the party. Now, I haven't got time to get into it right now, but the governing board of a political party, the individuals that are on that board have a tremendous amount of influence, remember, within that party. And if we have an opportunity to use our influence to determine who it is that is on the governing board of a political party, and it's something that we can invest 18 hours over the course of the next year doing, which is 0.02% of our time, then we got to ask ourselves, is it worth it? And I can tell you right now, if you don't know it already, it's really worth it, because it's a very important place where we want to be. So what I'm going to suggest to you is, on the road ahead, no matter how this election turns out on August 21st, no matter what happens, win, lose, or draw in your mind, whatever you consider a win, whatever you consider a loss or a draw, I want you to commit to the day after the election. Commit now and say, I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not necessarily going to stay, inside the party, but I'm going to continue to exercise my influence on any opportunity I have within that party and every other party. We're going to keep moving forward and stand on the platform of our successes and launch ourselves forward into taking advantage of other opportunities, because they're right before us. So that is the conservativeupdate.com story, and it isn't over yet. It isn't over yet. We got lots more to find out about on the road ahead, but in September, we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be doing a bit of a forensic review of the outcome of the election and that as well. So anyway, congratulations. Look what you guys did in such a short period of time. You really, really led the conversation. Check out the videos from the candidates. They are talking about the 4 pillars. We did successfully together draw attention to the authority of parents, to our right of belief, to the importance of protecting the vulnerable, and to our common desire to please stop burying our kids in debt. And that's a real important issue today. Okay, so congratulations. I'm going to finish up there, and I'm going to head back over to my desk, but I'm going to leave you with this really, really quick video while I, of course, run back over there. Okay, well, we are on the home stretch now. Just a few quick bullet points before we finish up on the day. Just want to double check and remind you that for those of you who were on the very beginning of the briefing, I said that we were going to finish big today. Believe me, I will not disappoint. I have something to share with you at the very end here today that you are going to be very excited to hear about. But first, just a couple of scheduling bullets for you. Here we have, first of all, for the September 4th National Leadership Briefing. That is the next National Leadership Briefing. I wanted to give you lots of notice because we are going to be focusing on the theme of getting started right. A lot of new people always joining us on the briefing, every single briefing, but this next briefing on September 4th, we are going to dedicate that time to spending more time and bringing more people on board correctly so that they can fully understand what to expect over the course of the next 12 months. You and I both saw earlier on in the big boardroom what we can accomplish in 12 months. So let's get more of us together in a room, raise our influence, and grow our understanding about what we're going to be doing on the road ahead and focus on getting everyone started right on September 4th for the very next briefing. Now, what does that mean for you? That means that I really want you to invite as many people as you possibly can to join us on the next briefing. We've provided you with tools. We want you to use those tools. If you want to send a quick email out to people and invite them to join us, the registration link is at the NLB Canada.ca website. And of course, though, that information will be provided in the post-briefing notes today. You also have that really cool video that I'm going to end the briefing with today that is going to be in the post-briefing notes that you can download and send to people. You could use it on your social media and you could say, register for next National Leadership Briefing because we're dedicating it to the new person that's joining us for the year ahead. And it's going to be an exciting one because there's lots to do. Now, just another quick bullet is we've got the conservativeupdate.com. Remember, that website is going to be continuing with a focus on, as I mentioned before, we focused on policy and governance. So the policy of that party and the governance of that party, we're going to use our combined influence across the nation to bring to bear in that party the priorities that we have as people of faith here in Canada. And it's going to be an exciting time. Definitely don't want to miss that. And then finally, this is the big announcement. I told you we were going to have something big for you today. On the next National Leadership Briefing, I am going to be bringing you details of the all-new liberalupdate.com website that's coming your way and the Liberal Party of Canada update campaign that we have got coming up on the road ahead. I tell you, it's going to be exciting. We have so much we can do within that party, but we're going to start on one specific campaign and we're going to focus on protecting vulnerable citizens. And you are going to want to be a part of that. If you have a heart for vulnerable people within our nation, then you are going to want to be here for the next National Leadership Briefing and find out details as to how you and I can work together to improve the situation for many, many people across Canada and raise them out of a very dangerous situation into a place of safety and security. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for all giving me an opportunity to serve you. I'm excited about what we've got planned on the road ahead, but I'm most excited about what you and I can accomplish together when we combine our influence and advance our ideas into society, culture, politics, and government here on the National Leadership Briefing. In the meantime, until next time, God bless you, God bless your family, and may God continue to bless this great nation of Canada. Bye for now. In the fall of 2016, a series of surveys went out across the nation to talk to people, centers of influence, people within the churches of Canada, people that were sitting in the pews. Parents were receiving them. Many people in the faith community received these surveys and were asked questions about what they felt were the priorities that we needed to focus on moving forward. We asked them what was important to them in their communities. We asked them about the things that we should be supporting and the things that we should be rejecting in the way of ideas out there. But what was interesting to note was when you looked at all of this information and the data that was collected, all of these expressions of concern could be reduced down into 4 silos, or what have come to be known as pillars. We set aside everything that can divide us. We set aside all of our denominational differences, all of our different political views, all of our different things that could possibly distract us from the things that we unify around. And these are the 4 pillars that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing.
First, we rally around a common desire and belief that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. We believe that here on the National Leadership Briefing, that parents in Canada should have the right to raise their children in the same faith tradition, with the same values. They should be able to pass on the things that were passed on to them by their parents freely and without interference from government. So that's the first pillar, that parents should have the right to raise their children the way they want. The second pillar that we rally around on the National Leadership Briefing is that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. And that's for all Canadians. That the people that we actually put in the legislatures and in the House of Commons, they must respect our right of belief and defend it, more importantly, when it's under siege or under attack. We don't want another politician being elected to hold a seat in the House of Commons that refuses to stand up against the barrage of attacks that are coming to people of faith in Canada right now. So they must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. That's the second pillar. Now, the third pillar that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing is that the laws and policies that are passed by those elected representatives must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. It's important to note that because sometimes, especially lately, politicians have been passing laws and they've been actually not taking into consideration the negative health consequences that those laws will have on the citizens. And even worse, they've been passing very serious laws that have actually put people in harm's way. So at the very least, at the very minimum, the very first box that all legislative proposals and all policy must check is the box that holds high the responsibility to keep vulnerable people within our community safe. That's the third pillar. And the fourth pillar that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing is, it is inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. So spending money on us, calling it an investment in our children's future, when really what it is, it's excessive taxation that's going to be placed on the backs of our kids when they're born and as they go through their young adult lives. That's inappropriate. That flat out, that is not fiscal policy that we support here on the National Leadership Briefing. Now, I want you to understand something about these four pillars. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Now, there's a movement out there in Canada right now, and again, they definitely aren't the majority. They are the vocal minority that believe that your ideas and the things that you hold up as priorities do not have a place. But I can tell you that in our society and in Canada, they do. You're a citizen, you're a constituent, you're a member of the community, you have elected representatives. Those are your ideas and you don't have to justify them, qualify them. They don't even, you know what? An idea doesn't even have to be a good idea to be considered among the mix of ideas that are out there in the government and political landscape. That's the truth of the matter. As citizens, we have the right to put forward ideas. These are the things that we believe in. That is good enough for us. That should be good enough for our elected representatives.